Hello, friends, and welcome to the Cowboys Report, brought to you by the Guild. I'm Tom Downey. Alongside me is Mitchell Renz. We have producer Brett Scott behind the scenes and on the mic. We have a great show for you folks today. We've got some Cowboys-Giants highlights. We got a new segment called the Ring of Honor, which I'm very much excited about. You'll see that here in just a little bit. We're going to preview the Broncos game. Obviously, that's the big thing coming up here. Injury reports as well. Once again, I'm Tom Downey. Follow me on Twitter at @WhatGoingDowney. And follow Mitchell and Mitchell Renz 365. A better Twitter game for Mitchell.
Yeah, a little bit.
I'm not going to lie about that one there. Again, this show is 100% live, so if you have comments, thoughts, reactions, whatever, get them in the comments section. Producer Brett Scott can bring them up on screen throughout the show. We love your guys' comments, your reactions. Brings a little bit of extra life to the show when you guys are commenting and reacting alongside with us.
For sure.
Also, download the Chat Sports app at chatsports.com/app. Everything you could possibly want if you're a Cowboys fan. Stats and scores, news and rumors. It's everything you need all in one place. Articles from the sources you trust from Mitchell and myself as well. Get it today at chatsports.com/app. And with the app, we'll now take you to our news and notes segment here. All the latest updates for the Cowboys here, brought to you by the Chat Sports app. The first one, Mitchell, Orlando Scandrick, the Cowboys' best cornerback. He underwent surgery for a broken hand. He said he wants to play this week. He didn't practice Wednesday. He didn't practice today. I think it's a little bit unlikely that he's able to go this week.
Yeah, I mean, I want to see a little bit more, but as you said, I don't think he'll be able to play this week, and I don't blame him for wanting to play. I mean, the Broncos, I think Trevor Siemian is a pretty overrated quarterback, and it'll be a good matchup, but I think anytime a guy wants to go up against elite wide receivers like Demaryius Thomas or Emmanuel Sanders, when you see a competitor, he wants to play. I know he does.
Head now to our second news and note, and this is we've seen almost be a weekly feature, I think, on the Cowboys Report.
It's getting
more
out of
Zeke
hand.
stuff.
It's getting a little, I think, a bit ridiculous. I just want to talk about football. I'm done talking about this. I want to move on. Zeke's a good player. Off the field is another thing. So let's keep it rolling here, and I want to see more football news from Zeke.
Yeah, just a quick note here on this one. The NFL is pushing for a faster appeal process, that they want to accelerate the deadline. That's probably not going to happen, and if it does happen, the judge, it's the same judge who they're appealing to in the process right now. He's not going to say, hey, that very firm ruling I gave 2 weeks ago, I totally changed my mind.
Yeah,
this is not going to happen.
No, I'd be very surprised to see Zeke not play this year. Sure, we might deal with the issue that Brady had 2 years or last year with Deflategate. Yeah, we might see Zeke not play games next year, but for this season, I think Zeke's a full go.
See some great comments coming in here. Keep them coming, folks. We will get to them throughout the show. Another injury update here. Terrence Williams, Bryce Butler both have ankle injuries. Butler's is much less severe. I think he's going to be fine to go in week 2. Terrence Williams, though, has a lateral ankle sprain. He hasn't practiced the past 2 days. The first practice he's ever missed as an NFL player. I don't know if we're going to see Terrence play. My guess would be no, we don't.
Yeah, normally, I mean, for any kind of injury updates, we want to see if the guy practices on Friday. That's kind of the big telling statement. So if he practices on Friday, I would expect him to play. If not, he probably won't. But Terrence Williams, for his career, I would say has been maybe not as good as what we were hoping. But he played well in week 1, and I hope he can continue that. It's a shame that he hurt his ankle.
Some comments here that we want to get to. This one from William Marshall, clearly an FSU fan, as you guys can tell by that profile picture, asks, when will we see Beasley and Switzer on the field together on the offense? In terms of offensive, Ryan Switzer played 2 snaps in week 1. He was not on the field a whole lot. We will see it at some point this year, but both these guys are slot guys, and Witten rarely comes off the field, especially on passing downs, because he's so reliable. You might have to see a true empty set before we see Beasley and Switzer on the field together.
I totally agree. I think from a standpoint of what they bring to the table, I think Cole Beasley is a better version of Switzer, and I think it's putting them both on the field might not be the best situation, especially because I don't know how solid of a pass or run blocker Switzer is. Beasley does a pretty good job for his size, but all around, we definitely see Dak rely on Beasley because he's a reliable option.
They're best friends.
Yeah, you think?
Yeah,
Best man at his wedding?
Maybe. I mean, Zeke and Dak are pretty tight too, but Dak trusts Cole, I think, more than any other receiver on that roster.
I don't blame him.
Those two have a great chemistry. Another comment here coming in from B Maddox asks, do we finally see Jordan Lewis, Cowboys 3rd-round pick out of Michigan, who did not play in week 1? Yes, he's been practicing this week. That's a very positive sign. Coming back from that hamstring injury. With Orlando Scandrick in doubt, it's very good timing for Lewis to come back healthy.
No, for sure. And I think the one thing that I'll definitely admit was I was really surprised on how well that Cowboys defense played. I think this offseason we saw a lot of question marks surrounding that defense, but they played well, and now if they can get their third rounder for this game, I think that'll definitely help. And a game that I think could be very defense-focused.
Drew Simpson asks, what's going on with the tight end and when will he return? He's referring, of course, to one Rico Gathers. The hype train was out of control around Rico this preseason. He was on IR with a concussion. Depending on what happens, my guess is that he would be an IR to return player.
Yep. It
depends on if there are other major injuries. At that point, they might say, okay, Rico, we'll just keep you stashed on the IR. But my guess is that sometime around week 8 or so, we'll start to see Gathers can practice around week 6. I think that'll be the case. And then week 8, maybe that's around the time we see him return.
Yeah, I mean, as long as Witten is on the field, as long as he's breathing, he's going to be on the field. I mean, the guy doesn't miss games, and he's so reliable. But I do like Rico Gathers, college basketball player. A lot of really, really great NFL tight ends have been college basketball players. We're talking about Antonio Gates, Tony Gonzalez, Jimmy Graham, Julius Thomas. Like, these guys are elite tight ends, and Gathers is
translates.
Yeah, I mean, it does. I mean, we saw him box out guys, get touchdowns, and he's a pretty big athletic guy. So,
well, folks, the Cowboys Report is brought to you by The Guild. It's a new concept in hospitality based out of Austin, Texas. If you're taking a trip to Austin, and I highly recommend doing so. It's my favorite city in Texas, outside of Dallas here. I'm not gonna go against Dallas here. It's luxury lodging at the best residential buildings in Austin. Think of it as kind of like a luxury Airbnb. Comes with virtual concierge. I know that's a big deal for you, Mitchell. But if you visit stayguild.com, use promo code ChatSports, they'll give you 15% off your stay. That virtual concierge, that is right up your alley.
It's almost too up my alley. I mean, I feel like when you hear the word concierge, you're just like, you get excited, you get all piped up. And no, it's a great deal. It's an awesome offer, and check it out.
Again, that's stayguild.com, promo code ChatSports for 15% off. It's highlight time here now. The Cowboys and the Giants. We'll take you to what happened there on Sunday Night Football. We'll start here, early first quarter. Dak Prescott will go deep, and he finds Bryce Butler, who lays out for the grab. Cowboys, though, settle for a field goal because they didn't feed Zeke inside of the 5-yard line. A routine play here, but this one gave Jason Witten the most receiving yards in franchise history. Another field goal after that one. And then again, back to Witten on a little run-pass option. Puts the Cowboys up 13-0 here. This is later in the second half, and then before the end of later in the second quarter, for the end of the half, Dak tucks and runs here, a gain of 17 for the first down. Another Dan Bailey field goal, 16-0 at the half. Charles Tapper then comes up huge with a sack here for the Cowboys, a critical one, limited the Giants to a field goal. This didn't really impact the game, but how can we not show it? Cole Beasley, the juggling acrobatic grab, ends up kind of being a one-handed catch, pinned it against his shoulder pads, and then a huge player. This one actually really did impact the game. Anthony Brown baited Eli Manning, got the interception. He had the ball first. We'll show you another look here. Was intended for Roger Lewis. No simultaneous possession because Anthony Brown had that ball first. And then this last play here, Mitchell, just kind of sums up the night for the Giants offense. Eric Flowers at the top here just gets abused by Benson Mayowa. There's a holding flag. Eli just kind of throws it away, and a rough night for the Giants offense. They had nothing going without Odell Beckham, who did not play.
Ugly game, and we see Eli struggle without Odell, and now Eli Manning, another interception. Actually, in 13 seasons, he's got 14 plus interceptions, and 11 of them. Nothing
going on the ground either. Paul Perkins had 7 carries for 16 yards. Shane Vereen was actually the most actively involved running back, but that was in the passing game.
Yep. Yeah, 9 catches, 51 yards, 0 rushing attempts. Yes, he is a running back.
All right, guys, reaction poll here. Then we have some leaked footage of the game that I know you guys are going to want to see here that NBC didn't want to show you. First off, get your reaction polls in here, and your vote in here on this reaction poll. Give us a heart if you thought Dak Prescott was the man for the Cowboys, a wow face if it was Jason Witten, a ha-ha face if it's Zeke Elliott, and a like if it was the pass rush. Mitchell, who are you going with here?
I'm going with the pass rush. They dominated that game. Maybe it was a little bit more the Giants' offensive line woes, but they got to Eli, they got in his face, and we've seen throughout Eli's career when you get in his face, he really struggles. And that Cowboys defense, anytime you can give up only 3 points in a game, it's got to be the defense.
A ton of wow faces coming in, and I agree. On the Jason Witten had the touchdown catch for the Cowboys. No disrespect meant to any other options here, but he also set the franchise mark for most receiving yards. Witten was my demand in this one. I was very impressed by how he played.
Oh,
he
well.
always does this to the Giants. They just can't cover him.
Well, Giants really struggle against tight ends in general, which I like Witten, great player, amazing career, future Hall of Famer, but I think the pass rush has more to do with the win.
Well, we have some leaked footage here. This is what NBC didn't want to show you. This was what the Giants offense was against the Cowboys here. Take a look. I saw quite a few haha faces scrolling in here on the Facebook feed, so hopefully you guys appreciated that as well. It was a terrible spot by the official, by the way.
Yeah.
Like that was more than a yard.
I think that's the funny thing that you say. Horrible spot.
Yeah,
Give the guys a yard.
Yeah. So just an all-around terrible game for the Giants, and you can tell that they are not the same offense without one Odell Beckham Jr.
For sure. I don't even think Becky the Icebox O'Shea could have saved the Giants in that Sunday night game. That was brutal. It was a brutal showing.
All right, a new segment here that we are debuting here on the Cowboys Report called the Ring of Honor. It's kind of exactly what it sounds like, the top players from Week 1 for the Cowboys. And we start at number 10. We'll work our way down from 10 to number 1. At number 10 is Charles Tapper. Now, he was the fourth-round pick before Dak Prescott for the Cowboys. He only played a handful of snaps this week. It was only about 12 snaps, only one run snap, actually. It was all kind of on third downs here. But in those 12 snaps, he had that big key sack. I liked what I saw out of Tapper. I think he's still going to be a situational player going forward, coming in on those third down type deals. But I thought he was effective in his limited snaps.
No, for sure. And I think, just like you said, he's going to be a limited player. And if the one thing I was really impressed was the depth that the Cowboys had at defensive line, bringing in fresh guys with their legs and just totally dominating that offensive line for the Giants. So
it was very much a rotation. I think the fact that the Giants' offensive line's pretty bad helped, but
it's ugly.
Yeah,
it's ugly.
We'll head now to number 9 on our Ring of Honor, Mr. Terrence Williams. He's drawn some ire on previous Cowboys Report shows from myself, from producer Brett Scott, from you, the fans, as well. He was very effective against the Giants. 6 catches, 68 yards. Now, he's dealing with an ankle injury. He's missed the last 2 practices. It kind of, you play through it at first, and there's the adrenaline involved, and then you go home, you sleep, and you wake up, you're like, oh, this is not that good. So that's concerning for Terrence Williams, but 6 catches, 68 yards. He was the Cowboys' most productive receiver.
I think he was most productive receiver because the Giants focused on taking Dez Bryant out of the game, which they've been very good at over the last 3 games that they've played against the Cowboys. But Williams was one of those high pedigree kind of players coming out of Baylor. But we've seen Baylor wide receivers struggle in the NFL. But I really hope, like you said, route running. They kind of just can run straight. But I hope Williams can turn it around and get a solid career going for him.
We'll head now to number 8 on our Ring of Honor. That is Dak Prescott. He missed some throws, and I think we saw that multiple times. He had this nice one here to Bryce Butler, a little bit long, but not too long. He finished the day 24 of 39, under 10 yards, and this is where Dak Prescott thrives. 19 of 23. Wow. You keep him in the short field with those shorter passes, he is great at it, and he's also great throwing on the run there. He did miss some throws. I think he was, especially early on, he was a little hyped up. You can kind of tell everything was just a little too fast for him. But the thing I really liked this week was, and I think we're going to see a lot of this going forward, folks, they use those RPOs, those run-pass options, where they let Dak decide he's going to hand it off to Zeke or throw it. You're going to see a lot of that going forward.
No, and I agree, and I think it's a smart thing to do. I mean, we want defenses to creep up into that box, pull it away, and then hit guys over the middle, and that's what we saw the Cowboys do last year. It's why they were very successful, and they were successful doing it this week against the Giants.
And they made Landon Collins the target of those run-pass options. It was very effective. Collins is an amazing defender. They pretty much said, okay, Collins, if you come up on the read-pass option, we're going to throw it. If you stay back, we're going to hand it off. So no matter what Collins did, it would end up being the wrong move because of those RPOs, and that's something that Dak is very good at.
No, he truly is, and like you said, he was a little, I think, nervous to see the game. He was overthrowing guys, and he missed Dez on a slant across the middle for a touchdown.
Yeah,
but
and we've
overall,
seen that before. He gets a little hyped up early. The playoff game, he's done that before as well.
Yep.
Head now to number 7 on the Ring of Honor this week, one Ezekiel Elliott. I saw some people try and claim that Zeke was the beneficiary of a great offensive line in this one. The offensive line was fine. He had a ton of yards after contact. And these plays that we're showing you here, he's breaking tackles. He's being patient. He's getting the most. He's not leaving any meat on the bone, as been mentioned here on previous Cowboys reports. And they got him more involved in the passing game. So 104 yards on the ground, 36 through the air. You're going to see him continue to be involved in the passing game. I liked what I saw out of Zeke.
And I did too. And the one thing that I really liked, when you see a guy get 29 touches in a game, Zeke is the focal point of this team. But like you said, he was way more involved in the passing game. Zeke actually led all running backs last season in reception yards, like per catch. So I think he was around 13. So we've seen Zeke dominate on the ground, and now if he gets more involved in the passing game, for all you fantasy guys, he's a stud.
Per our friends over at Pro Football Focus, of Zeke's 104 yards on the ground, 77 came after contact.
Wow,
that's a really impressive number.
That's super impressive. That's really surprising to me.
Yeah. Heading out to number 6, and this is someone I know all you guys at home are watching, are excited about. Jalen Smith, his first NFL start. He actually played a pretty significant number of snaps in this one. Sean Lee was on the field. We'll mention Sean Lee later on. 57 snaps here for the Cowboys on defense. Jalen Smith played 35 of those. And he's still, folks, he's still not 100%. Now, north to south, it's there, it's all there, but going east to west and making those little cuts back to the side, he's still getting there. I thought he had some issues in run defense. He overran Orleans Darkwa on one play. So he wasn't great, but he was still more than effective enough against the Giants. The ground game had nothing going for New York. Smith was involved in that, and he showed up in the stat book. 7 tackles, 4 of them solo. This is a very good first game for Smith.
Yeah, and it's a guy who I want to root for.
How can you not?
How can you not? I mean, great linebacker out of Notre Dame. Unfortunately, he was injured in his last game in college. And I think the biggest thing when you have a knee injury, especially like the one he had, it's confidence. As soon as he gets that confidence back, we've seen how he's a great defender. He's a great all-around defender. So as soon as he gets that confidence a little back in his knee, you're going to see him be right on track.
Smith was number 6 on our Ring of Honor. We're going to head here to the top 5 in just a moment, folks. Once again, I'm Tom Downey. Follow me on Twitter at WhatGoingDowney. This is Mitchell Renz at MitchellRenz365. And we got producer Brett Scott behind the scenes as well. He'll chime in at some point here, but he's making everything look pretty on screen, so he's got a lot going on. Heading out to number 5 on our Ring of Honor, it's Zach Martin, the offensive guard. I was very impressed by how he handled Damon Snacks Harrison. He's one of the better defensive tackles in all of the NFL, especially in the run game. Pro Football Focus gave him the number 2 offensive guard in all of the NFL in Week 1. He's an incredible player.
I think he's the best offensive guard in the NFL.
I agree.
I think he is the reason why the Cowboys have such an elite running game, and ever since he's come in, that's really when you've seen the Cowboys running game take off. But man, that's unbelievable guard.
Now this top 5 is here very much the guys who thrived against the Giants, and at number 4 is Anthony Brown. I don't really know what it is about going up against Eli Manning, but his 2 career interceptions, both against Eli.
Well, I think a lot of guys have interceptions against Eli.
Just the 1 tackle. He stepped up when Orlando Scandrick went down with an injury. This is another second-year player out of that very promising and already very productive 2016 NFL draft class. If Orlando Scandrick misses time, he's going to have to step up again. They used him as the number 2 cornerback when Scandrick went down, and then he shifted into the slot when the Cowboys went to a 3 cornerback look.
Yeah, well, I think anytime you can see a guy who's a little bit shiftier like Brown, he's quicker. They're normally better slot cornerbacks, and he'll have his hands full this week. He might get Emmanuel Sanders from some of the stuff that I've been reading, but we'll see how he handles it.
Heading out to number 3, the most important player on the Cowboys defense. It is Sean Lee. He was just classic Sean Lee again this week. 8 tackles, 7 of them were solo. He had a tackle for loss. Now, he allowed 8 catches, but they were only for 31 yards. It was kind of like, they checked down to Shane Vereen. Sean Lee comes up and makes the play.
Yeah, I mean, Sean Lee out of linebacker U, Penn State, shout out there.
Nice.
The guy's great. He's had trouble staying healthy throughout his career, but when he's on the field, I mean, we were talking about earlier how much better the Cowboys defense truly is with him on the field. He's the quarterback of that defense.
He is instrumental. I think outside of maybe Zeke or Dak, there's no more important player for the Cowboys than Sean Lee. Heading out to number 2 on our list, and he had, I think, one of the more surprising games, but also one of the more productive games here. DeMarcus Lawrence was fantastic. This actually, I think, was really the best I've seen DeMarcus Lawrence play. He had 5 tackles, 3 of them for loss, and he had 2 sacks. He was a huge factor in that Cowboys pass rush. He had the most snaps of any defensive end. He's entering a contract year. This was a fantastic start for DeMarcus Lawrence.
Yeah, entering a contract year, when you hear any guy is entering a contract year, they
excited.
show out.
Yeah.
And he played well. Again, I want to see it this week against a much better Denver Broncos offensive line. The Giants probably have the worst offensive line besides the Seahawks in the NFL. So I want to see him against better competition. But from what I saw, he looked good. He looked hungry.
Eric Flowers was very much outmatched by DeMarcus Lawrence. Now he's probably going to get Garrett Bowles,
Yeah.
the rookie out of Utah. We'll see how he fares. And we'll talk more about DeMarcus Lawrence later on in the show. I promise you guys that. But at number 1, this was there will be some tough decisions to make on this segment going forward. This was an easy one for me. It's Jason Witten. He had the touchdown catch. He is now the Cowboys' franchise record holder for receiving yards. He always tortures the Giants because they don't have a linebacker that can cover. This was a no-brainer for me. In the end, 7 catches, 59 yards. This was another one of those run-pass options that we mentioned earlier in the show. Witten was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm watching the highlights right now of Witten, and I'm wondering if it's in slow motion. I mean, when the guy runs, I don't know how he gets open, but he gets open. And it's so mind-blowing to me, but as long as he's on the field, he's a great blocker, solid hands, and Prescott looks for him, especially in the red zone.
It's just, I don't know how he does it. He is 35 years old. He's now in his 15th NFL season, and he just keeps being Jason Witten.
Old man football.
Unbelievable. So that was the Ring of Honor. We will loop you through the top 10 here one more time as well. Once we was Charles Tapper, the sack in only 12 snaps. Number 9, Terrence Williams, who had 6 catches for 68 yards. Dak Prescott, the Cowboys franchise QB, was number 8. Ezekiel Elliott was number 7. At number 6 was Jalen Smith, who got the start at linebacker and had 7 tackles. At number 5 was Zach Martin, a great offensive guard. At number 4 was Anthony Brown, who had the interception of Eli Manning in the game. At number 3 was Sean Lee, played every snap, had 8 tackles, 7 of them solo. Number 2 was DeMarcus Lawrence. And then number 1, the one and only Jason Witten, future Hall of Famer, who was, again, fantastic against the New York Football Giants. That wraps up the Ring of Honor segment. Up next is Hot or Not. But do you know what is hot, Mitchell?
What's up?
The Guild. And today's show is brought to you by The Guild. This is a new concept in hospitality in Austin, Texas. If you're taking a trip to Austin, this is the way to go. This is who you stay with. You stay with The Guild. It's luxury lodging at the best residential buildings in Austin. Think of it kind of as like a luxury Airbnb, as virtual concierge. Visit stayguild.com. Use promo code CHATSPORTS. You'll get 15% off your stay. Airbnb can be a little bit hit and miss. Sometimes the beds, and the beds can be a little weird.
Yeah, no, I was actually telling him I had a pretty interesting experience one time with the Airbnb, and you know what's not hot? When you can hear squeaky beds with extracurricular activities in rooms in Airbnbs. So with the Guild, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Guild's been really awesome.
It is classy. It is the luxury way to stay in Austin. Visit stayguild.com. Promo code CHATSPORTS. You'll get 15% off. It's time for Hot or Not. 3 things that are hot for the Cowboys right now. Hey, the pass rush, number 1.
No doubt.
It was fantastic in Week 1 against the New York Football Giants. But going forward, and this will bring up a weigh-in here as well, and then we'll talk about the other hot or nots here in just a moment. How confident are you actually in the Cowboys' defense and pass rush?
The pass rush, I am still pretty confident in the Cowboys' pass rush. Their cornerbacks, though, still, I don't know, they worry me a little bit more. I worry how they're going to be able to stick with wide receivers if the pass rush can't get there. And I think this week is a great test for the Cowboys defense in general with Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders.
Really good receivers. The Broncos offensive line definitely better than the Giants. Still has some issues, though. And we'll talk more about a notable Broncos offensive lineman who's probably not going to play, one that Cowboys fans certainly know. I am still very cautious here. I don't fully trust this Cowboys defense with the pass rush yet. I think it was the Giants and their terrible offensive line without Odell Beckham.
No, and I think without Odell Beckham is a big one, and I think honestly you and I could get a sack or 2 against that Giants.
I do think
I would pay to see that. I would pay to see you.
I really do think I could.
Can we make that happen? Can we get Tom in a Cowboys jersey? I mean, that'd be pretty sick.
We will do what we can. I am very much undersized for a defensive end, but that just means that I'm going to go right under them.
Yeah.
They're not able to get their hands on me. Next up on Hot or Not is hot was the Cowboys' offensive line, and they protected Dak Prescott pretty well. the Giants didn't really get the pressure I think that they're used to getting. But in the ground game, we had some issues. Zeke kind of bailed out the offensive line. But overall, with the way Chaz Green played at left guard, this is, again, a great Cowboys offensive line.
I think it was really refreshing to see. I saw in the offseason, Pro Football Focus rated the Cowboys offensive line 9th overall, which I thought was pretty surprising. They did lose 2 key parts, Doug Free and Ronald Leary, and it was nice to see that this Cowboys offensive line meshed together, really protect Dak, because ultimately, if the Cowboys want to be successful like they were last year, it's that offensive line controlling the pass game, controlling the run game. Really refreshing to see, and I think they're going to continue their success, and especially against the Broncos, who will be a great test to see how good that offensive line for the Cowboys is.
Totally agree. And then our final hot, it's the Cole Beasley catch. And we're going to show it to you guys one more time because how can we not? This, I think, was one of the better catches in all of week 1 in the NFL. This was nearly a pick 6, by the way. If Beasley doesn't bat that up more towards himself, 24 would end up with the interception. Instead, Beasley ends up with the absurd grab. I don't know how he did this.
What's the better catch, that or the Odell Beckham catch 2 years ago?
Well, for starters, the Odell Beckham catch, they didn't even win that game. So I think that makes it a little bit overrated. So I'm going with the Cole Beasley catch here as I just, you know what?
That's a hot take.
Full-on homer here, which I rarely do.
Man, it's the Odell Beckham catch for me. That's still.
I mean, you're probably right, but I'm going with the Cole catch myself here. Now it's time for who's not hot. And this was Taco Charlton, and the Cowboys' rookie first-round pick out of Michigan, a non-factor in Week 1. He ended up playing in this one. He was kind of more of a rotational defensive end, but he played 26 snaps. That was actually 3rd most among defensive ends for the Cowboys. He didn't make an impact. He didn't record a single stat. He didn't make a tackle. No assisted tackles. He never showed up against a not good Giants offensive line.
Yeah, and I think if there's one thing we definitely don't like, it's cold tacos. I mean, that's for sure. I mean, he did have some pretty sweet-looking cleats, but that's really when you have to talk about a player's cleats being really the only highlights from a game, it's not a very good game. But I think he'll get it rolling. We saw Taco play pretty well in the preseason, and he was a pretty solid defensive guy coming out of Missouri. Did he play out of? Michigan. Sorry, my bad there. But he'll get it going. He's a rookie. He's a young guy.
He just needs some time to develop, so hopefully the Cowboys' pass rush stays productive with DeMarcus Lawrence and Charles Tapper and other guys, and they can not have to rely so heavily on Taco Charlton. Also not the Cowboys' backup RBs.
Yeah, what the heck was going on here?
Darren McFadden didn't play. He was a healthy scratch, which was really surprising to me, his first ever healthy scratch in the NFL. And instead of McFadden, the Cowboys went with Alfred Morris, who had 4 carries for 1 yard.
Yeah, I mean, that stat line's more boring than Alfred Morris's name. I mean, that's ugly.
He had a 4-yard rush. He got tackled in the backfield a couple times, but he was not effective.
I mean, I think you brought up a really interesting point before we came on here of why you think the Cowboys made McFadden a healthy scratch and tried to get Morris the ball.
I think they're trying to showcase Alfred Morris because now they're very confident that Ezekiel Elliott is going to play the entire season, and they have McFadden. I think they're trying to showcase and say, hey, Alfred Morris is our number 2. By the way, does anyone want to trade for him? That's my kind of conspiracy theory there, and it brings us to a reaction poll. So, folks, use those reaction buttons. Give us a wow face if you think Darren McFadden should be the Cowboys' backup RB, a wow face if it's Alfred Morris, and a ha-ha if it's one Rod Smith, who was the number 3, played mostly on special teams. He had 2 snaps in this one. They were both pass protection snaps. Mitchell, where do you fall on this? Who should be the Cowboys' backup?
Season played pretty good when he was in the short stints, and he's had a pretty solid career when he's been able to stay healthy, and he's been able to stay healthy behind that Cowboys offensive line, and Alfred Morris just doesn't do it for me. He is a glorified fullback the last 2 years. He just doesn't have the explosion, the vision that I think we're used to seeing from Morris. And Rod Smith, I mean, come on. Why is he even up there? It's McFadden.
He's on the roster. I agree. It's Darren McFadden. And now I see a lot of hearts rolling here. I see a handful of wow faces. I haven't seen a single ha-ha, which doesn't really surprise me. I saw some early likes going on. Maybe that means somebody else, which I don't think that's going to happen. So I think it should be McFadden. He outperformed Alfred Morris last year. And you know this because you're a big fantasy guy. Alfred Morris has steadily declined since his first year in the NFL.
No, for sure. But, I mean, when you talk about just workload, I mean, he was given a large workload as a rookie year. It was the rookie year, I believe, also with Robert Griffin. And just since then, it's been a down spiral. And he's an average running back. He's at best.
All right, folks, again, keep your comments and questions coming. Producer Brett Scott can bring them up on screen throughout the show. In the meantime, we're going to talk Cowboys and Broncos, the Week 2 matchup. This is a good one. Denver is a good team that should have won by more in Week 1. They were up by 24-7 in the fourth quarter, and they almost blew it.
That's what I mean, but good teams figure out a way to win. I think the Broncos have their hands full, though, this week with the Cowboys.
I totally agree. The Cowboys, though, they might be without Orlando Scandrick and Terrence Williams, as we mentioned earlier, and then you brought this up in our pre-show meeting. The last time these two teams played, it's a fun one.
Now,
It didn't end fun, but
if you guys get free time, look at the game back on, I believe it was October 6, 2013. The last game was 51-48. The Broncos won. Tony Romo threw for 500 yards, and Peyton Manning threw for 400 yards. I mean, mind-blowing. I can almost bet my entire rent, hopefully my roommate isn't watching this as well, but that the Cowboys-Broncos game will not be 51-48.
I feel very confident on that as well.
I'll take the under.
I will take the under. We'll talk more about predictions again later on in the show. Injury report is the first segment we have here. Earlier there was a comment about Jordan Lewis and his hamstring injury. Folks, he should play this week. I think he could have played week 1, but it's week 1. There's no reason to rush him back. I think he's going to be good to go in week 2. He's been practicing all week. He should be fine. 3 guys that I don't know if we're going to see. Orlando Scandrick, we'll put him as questionable for now. If he doesn't play or doesn't practice Friday, he'll drop down to doubtful. Same with Terrence Williams. Both players have been held out of practice with a hand and ankle injury, respectively. I don't think we're going to see him play.
Yeah, I mean, we got to see what happens. I mean, the reports from practice this week have not really looked so good with these guys. They've been sitting out, and like I said, Friday, once that injury report comes out, we'll definitely know for sure. But if there's one thing that I dislike that the NFL did is there's no more probable.
I hate that. I hate that
so much. Drives me
much.
Absolutely insane, especially for instances like this.
They were upset that, oh, well, if you were probable, you were going to end up playing. And, like, that's what probable means.
Exactly.
That's the point of it. I think it was like 89% or something where probable players played. But now if you're injured, you have to go as something. It just confuses people. Because questionable, in people's heads, like, oh, like 50% chance they play. Well, now it's like if you're questionable, there's like a 75% chance you'll play.
Yeah,
and no one lists as doubtful until right before the game. It's stupid. I hate that about the NFL. No more ranting. On to the injury report here. Broncos time. Zach Kerr, Jared Crick, a pair of defensive ends. I think Kerr's going to play. He's been practicing. He missed week 1. Same with Jared Crick. He's been having back spasms, and those are not fun.
Yeah. Anytime you hear of any NFL player dealing with anything related to your back,
that's bad.
Bad news.
Ron Leary, this is one that all of you at home watching or at work watching know. He has a concussion. He's still in the concussion protocol. At this point, I don't see how he plays.
Yeah,
he's not out of it yet.
Yeah, anytime you're still in the concussion protocol and it's Thursday and you got a Sunday game, it's not looking good. Yeah, I would definitely count Leary more than likely out this game.
Which brings up a big question as to who steps in at guard. It was very interesting. The Broncos they basically used a 4-guard rotation in week 1. Ron Leary, Max Garcia, Alan Barber, and Colin McGovern all played either 33 or 36 snaps. It was a rotation, and Leary's concussion impacted that. Max Garcia is one starter. We'll see if Barber, who was traded from the Eagles to the Broncos, or McGovern, who was a draft pick out of Missouri. Barber looked a little bit better. Neither of them looked all that great, though.
I said last season we saw the Broncos offensive line really struggle. It's why they went out and drafted Bulls in the first round, and that's why they traded for Leary. So if Leary's out, that's definitely going to be a huge sore for a Broncos team that wants to control the game with their running game and their defense. So.
And then another potential notable injury, Darian Stewart is dealing with a groin injury. He might not play. That would mean Will Parks gets more action. This kind of the lesser page 2 here. Brendan Langley is a backup cornerback, a rookie out of Lamar College in Houston. Devontae Booker is practicing, but he's still not really ready after missing a bunch of the preseason with a wrist injury. I don't see him playing. And then Paxton Lynch is also out, leaving Brock Osweiler as the backup once again.
Oh, man, what a world. Brock Osweiler's a Bronco again.
Time is a flat circle, folks. Once again, I'm Tom Downey. Alongside me is Mitchell Renz and producer Brett Scott behind the scenes. I'm on Twitter at WhatGoingDowney. Mitchell's at MitchellRenz365. That was the injury report here. We'll talk keys to the game, and these I don't think are going to change all that much given the week, given what the matchup is. At number 1, hey, just keep feeding Zeke, Mitch. It works.
Feed the man. I mean, 29 touches, you're going to win games when Zeke gets 29 touches. And if there's one area where that Broncos defense struggles, it's running backs. We saw them struggle last year, being able to defend running backs out of the backfield. And I think right now, if the Cowboys can get on him, it'll be a good game for Zeke.
I could not agree more there. They've been giving Domata Peko some notable snaps, and that's not going to work out well for you. He's been washed up for the past couple of years. Came over from the Broncos. They have to run the football. That's going to be essential, and I think they will find success on the ground.
No, I think they will too, just because, like we said, the Broncos a lot of times bring a lot of pressure, and when you bring a lot of pressure, you're left exposed, especially if you get through that front seven.
Number 2 is keep the pressure up. I mean, it worked well against the Giants. They used mostly 4-man fronts. Maybe you'll see some slot blitzes out of the cornerback spot. Cowboys love to do that. Find a way to do it again. I don't know if you're going to get 3 sacks again this week, but if you can get 2, if you can pressure Simeon, who's more mobile than Eli Manning is, by the way, so you got to be careful there. If you get some pressure, you'll have some success against this Denver offense. Excuse me.
Well, I would be willing to bet that 90% of the quarterbacks who've ever played in the NFL are more mobile than Eli Manning, and so I don't really think talking about that. But what I really am interested in is getting pressure on Simeon. Simeon actually last season was one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL when dealing with blitzes. I believe he had 14 touchdowns and 1 interception when dealing with blitzes and pressure. So he's been able to handle it this far in his career. But when you have wide receivers like Sanders and Thomas, we can interrupt their chemistry with pressure, I think that's where the Cowboys defense is really going to come up clutch.
And then the final key to the game here is finishing drives. We mentioned this before. Dak had that beautiful throw to Bryce Butler.
Yep.
First and goal from the 3.5 or 2.5, whatever. They didn't give it to Zeke.
Yeah, I don't know how you have 3 plays on the 3 and you don't give a single one to Zeke. I understand sometimes teams try to be a little too cute.
I think that's what happened.
And I think they don't want to totally give the keys to Dak in his second year. This team still needs to run the ball, especially on the goal line. And I mean, I have Zeke on all my fantasy teams, so that would be great.
Yeah, here's the way I look at it is, and I think the fans, feel free to chime in here. If you give the ball to Zeke 3 times, you think that you can pick up 3 yards?
I would hope.
Without a doubt, right?
Yeah.
It's almost 100% chance, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to know. I mean, just ask the Seahawks. Run it when you're inside.
Run it. Just run the football now. It almost didn't matter because Dak had Dez for a slant. He
missed him.
He just missed him. He didn't have a good throw there. There was a little bit of pressure, but just run the football.
Run the ball.
Just give Zeke the ball 40 times a game. Who cares in the end?
40 times. That'd be insane.
I think he can handle it. Anyway, our next reaction poll here, folks, is which Broncos offensive player worries you the most? 4 options: Demaryius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders, Jamal Charles, or C.J. Anderson. Where do you fall, Mitchell?
I'm going to go with Demaryius Thomas. I think he is grossly underrated at the wide receiver position. The last 5 seasons, he has 90 catches for 1,000 yards, and he's just been a solid guy throughout his career out of Georgia Tech. And he's a long, lanky guy. He can stretch the field, and he's just a very solid option. And I think he could be the guy that ultimately could change a game. He's a guy that can take the ball deep on any play.
We're going to mention this later on in the show. I want to take away C.J. Anderson in this one. I want the Broncos to be forced to throw it a bunch with Simeon.
Yeah.
And Jamal Charles, folks, by the way, was the ha-ha because I don't think Jamal Charles is anywhere near what he once was.
He's not even close. And you could tell in a very few carries. Jamal Charles, amazing career, all-time leader yards per carry in NFL history, but he's lost a step. There's no doubt.
All right, folks, once again, for those of you just joining us, welcome to the Cowboys Report brought to you by The Guild. I am Tom Downey. Alongside me is Mitchell Renz. Let's head now to our X Factor, and this is one that's right up your alley here. The X Factor for me, and Mitchell agreed with me, Dez Bryant versus the Broncos secondary.
Throw up the X. Throw up the X. I mean, last time Dez played the Broncos in that legendary game, Dez had 10 targets, 6 catches, 141 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But we've seen Dez really struggle against physical corners, and the Broncos have physical corners. So I think if Dez can maybe get a little room, he is an elite option in the red zone. And we put a little poll on Twitter because we had a debate here. Is Dez still a top 10 wide receiver? These are the games where top 10 wide receivers show up.
Is Dez elite? Is Dez a top 10 receiver? We're going to get to a weigh-in here in just a second. I think I know what most of the votes will be here from the Cowboys Report audience. He's got to step up this week. And this is a rough matchup for any receiver.
Oh, yeah.
Aqib Talib and Chris Harris is one of, if not the best, 1-2 punch at cornerback in the NFL.
And I totally agree. I mean, when you talk about last year numbers, just in a glimpse, the Broncos gave up 1,600 receiving yards and only 3 touchdowns to wide receivers last year. Mm-hmm. The next closest team was 2,400 receiving yards to wide receivers. They shut down wide receivers, and Dez got shut down last week against Janoris Jenkins, and that might be a little bit more to do with the Jenkins matchup, but the Broncos get to the quarterback, they force pressure, and they're going to take Dez out of this game.
And Dak and Dez were about this close to connecting multiple times for big plays.
Yep.
And I think partially that is, look, the Giants have a really good defense.
Great defense.
I think Dak was a little bit off especially early on, and that's when the connections almost happened. But he got targeted a lot. He's going to get his chances. Can he make those tough grabs that he almost made a couple of times against New York?
Yeah, and like I said, we need to get Dez more targets. I think ultimately we need to focus him a little bit more, especially in the red zone. But against Broncos, man, I'm telling you, man, in Denver, that Broncos defense is scary, and it's going to be a good test for Dez.
Well, that brings us to a weigh-in here, and this is one that you tweeted out on Twitter, and you should bring up the updates here on the polls. Is Dez Bryant an elite wide receiver? And I think just for simplicity's sakes here, we'll call elite top 10.
Yeah, well.
And I think most of the audience here will be voting yes, he is. I think for starters here, as we kind of work our way briefly here through the top 10, Julio, Antonio Brown, Jordy Nelson, Odell Beckham, Mike Evans, A.J. Green, those are your clear-cut top 6.
Yeah.
Like those are your 6 best receivers. We can include Gronk as a pass catcher if we want. I know you're a big DeAndre Hopkins fan, so that puts us at 8. That brings us with the likes of Doug Baldwin, Brandon Cooks, maybe a Michael Thomas, Amari Cooper, Demaryius Thomas, a T.Y. Hilton, who I think is a no there. So is Dez a top 10 receiver for you? Your Twitter poll said no.
Yeah, it's right now 53% no, which I think is kind of surprising. But when I think about a wide receiver from a fantasy standpoint, is he top 10? No. Is he a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL? Yes. And I think when you just see a guy who throughout his career has been as dominant as he's been in the red zone, that's what makes a wide receiver, when you can find that end zone, especially at a high rate like Dez has. It's just Dez has battled a few injuries, and now he's getting up there a little bit in age. But you want to look at numbers, look at Dez's numbers for 3 years when he played all 16 games. He's over 12 touchdowns every single one of those seasons.
He just scores. And that was something that he and Tony Romo had down so perfectly, was what amounted to just a little back shoulder bullet pass. Dez would run at the cornerback, turn his shoulder, ball right there, every time. Now, he and Dak don't have that yet. I've seen that play be run in the past, and Dak doesn't quite put it the way Tony does with the accuracy there, but I think it'll come.
It'll come, and I mean, we saw it even a little bit last year. I mean, Dez had 8 touchdowns last year, I think, on 50 catches, which is about, I'm not a math major, but around.
I'm really bad at math.
Yeah, 5.5, I think, catches for every touchdown, which is a very high rate.
It's a very high rate.
And if he can get to that and play another 15, 16 games, I mean, man, the guy's going to be a stud, and I'm going to project Dez to get 10 touchdowns because he's that good, but he's got a really difficult slate of cornerbacks this season.
Players to watch now. I've highlighted 3 players to keep an eye on this one. These are players that have to step up or have notable matchups against the Denver Broncos. The first one for me, I think, is kind of an obvious one. Chidobe Awuzie, the rookie out of Colorado, the second-round pick. He played a bunch last week when Orlando Scandrick went down. I thought he fared pretty well. Now he's getting what amounts to starting work this week because Scandrick has not practiced yet. He has to step up against a Denver receiving core, especially when the Giants don't have Odell Beckham. It's better.
Oh, it's much better. You could argue Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas are probably in the top 5 for wide receiver combos. In the NFL.
Love Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah, no, you were hyping up Emmanuel Sanders
a lot.
Emmanuel Sanders. He's good. I mean, the guy puts in the work, but I think this is a good test to see what Chidobe is made of. I can't even pronounce his last name. So
Awuzie.
Oh man, Awuzie.
It's a tough one.
That's a mouthful, but good test for him. We'll see what he's got.
Hey, even Benny Fowler showed up.
Fowler.
He had 2 touchdown catches. God knows Cody Latimer has been a bust.
Well, I think Benny Fowler. I mean, I think that the Chargers just tried to take away.
They took away the top 2 guys. They forgot about.
Benny Fowler might not score another touchdown the rest of the year.
Yeah, well, the tight ends are Jags. Just a guy in Denver. At number 2, though, is La'el Collins. He is not going to be going up against just a guy. He gets Von Miller this week.
Yeah, well, that's definitely going to be a tough matchup. Anytime you get Von Miller, I mean, there's no doubt that's going to be difficult. But the Broncos bring the rush. They have solid nose tackles, and they're not afraid to bring the blitz. And like I said, in Denver, it's always a difficult matchup. And
then our final player to watch here, DeMarcus Lawrence. We talked about him a lot earlier on in the show. He is entering a contract year. He has to step up again this week. I think he's going to kind of be the guy that the Cowboys lean on for pass rush, especially after what we saw in Week 1. Now he gets Garrett Bowles. That's a winnable matchup, I believe, for him. Let's see how he fares. He has to keep. producing. It can't be a 2 sacks one game and then disappears for 3 games.
It's a good matchup. Bowles, I thought, looked good week 1, and then he's had a pretty good career out of Utah, and he had some off-field issues coming into the league, but Bowles is no doubt from a talent standpoint is one of the best blindside blockers in the league right now. I mean, he's good.
He has the ability, first year out of Utah, the off-the-field stuff, so he's older. He's older than most first-year players, but he's their best offensive tackle because Menelik Watson looked pretty bad last week. So, we'll see.
Didn't he get Bosa, though?
He did get Bosa. That's a pretty tough matchup for him.
Yeah, that's a lot of people look bad against Bosa.
So, folks, get your score predictions in here. I've got one. Mitchell's got one. Producer Brett Scott will get his first words of the show as well here. So get your score predictions in. Before we get to those, though, we want to remind you guys that today's show is brought to you by Stay Guild. Again, that's Guild in Austin. It is a new concept in luxury hospitality. It's based out of Austin. If you're taking a trip to Austin, and you guys have to, it's an amazing city in Texas, you need to stay with the Guild. It's luxury lodging at some of the best residential buildings in Austin. Think of it kind of as like a luxury Airbnb, better than Airbnb. After all, it is a luxury hospitality here. Comes with virtual concierge. Visit stayguild.com. Use promo code ChatSports for 15% off. I know you're going to go to Austin at some point here. This is what you're going to stay with.
I just moved to the Dallas area, and now I'm going to go to Austin. No doubt I'm getting something from the Guild.
You're going to love Austin.
Yeah?
You're going to love it. Awesome city. One of my favorite cities in America here. So we will get here to Dallas wins if. In the meantime, folks, get your score predictions in the comments. The first Dallas wins if for me is if Dak has protection. If Von Miller, if Shaquille Barrett are bearing down on him, I'm a little bit concerned about that Cowboys offense.
I can see that. I mean, we need to see Dak get protection. I think he's a quarterback that needs the protection. But I mean, for me, you got
offensive line.
It's the offensive line. That's how it is.
Next up here is if the Cowboys limit the Denver Broncos ground game. C.J. Anderson, they fed him a lot in week 1. They gave Jamal Charles quite a few carries. The Denver offense is going to be, I think, a run-first offense, or that's what they're going to try to be.
Which is why I think the Cowboys need to jump on the Broncos early. If you can force the Broncos to get out of those positive game scripts and make Simeon throw a little bit more, and I think that's where the Broncos really kind of struggle. But C.J. Anderson had 20 carries, 81 yards this past week, and we need to take C.J. Anderson out of the game. The Cowboys will be successful.
And that's something the Cowboys have done very well, is limiting the ground game. That's their focus on defense. Their first priority is to say, hey, we're not going to let you run the football. Worked like a charm against the Giants. Going to be a little bit tougher this week. I think a better halfback and a better offensive line and a better offense overall. Yeah. But you just kind of mentioned that third point. Get that early lead. And I couldn't agree more with you because the Cowboys' defensive mindset is going to be, hey, let's dare Trevor Siemian to beat us.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if he actually can.
So Trevor Siemian is just one of those quarterbacks to me. If you could tell me that you're going to beat me with Trevor Siemian, I'm going to say good luck. I mean, Trevor Siemian's had an okay career, but they've really relied on that running game, and they've really in the defense especially. So, as long as you can put Denver in situations where they can't just pin their ears back and rush after the quarterback, that's when we really see Denver struggle. So if they can get behind, they can't blitz Dak as much, force Zeke to run a little bit more, which is normally a pretty good success for winning.
Let's get to predictions time now. Right now, producer Brett Scott has his first one. He has the Cowboys winning 19-16, a very low-scoring game. Again, folks, get your score predictions in. We'll bring them up on screen here. What do you have, Mitchell?
I got 28-20, and I think it's. I think
a little bit higher scoring.
I think it's a little bit higher scoring. I think we see the Cowboys really focus on that run game a little bit more, build out an earlier lead, and then I think ultimately what it comes down to is the Cowboys are going to convert inside the red zone. Good teams convert in the red zone, and I think the Broncos struggle a little bit more in the red zone. So,
I got a little bit closer game. I got the Cowboys 23-20, so that same 3-point win margin that Brett had. The spread, by the way, in this one is 2 in favor of the Cowboys, so I think Dallas covers. The over-under is 42, so I'm just 1 over it, but I don't fully trust that over-under.
Yeah, I'm taking the over.
I'm a little bit worried. Brett had the under on that one, so that's my prediction there, folks. Again, if you have predictions, get them in the comments section. I guess I see a couple here scrolling in as well, but I like this one for the Cowboys. I think that they will pull out the win here. Patrick Martinez agrees with me. He's got it 26-16, has the Cowboys winning the game.
Like I said, I think it's a good prediction. I think the Cowboys match up very well with the Broncos. Mm-hmm. Maybe not so much on the defensive side, but offensively, I think if there's one team in the NFL that can really handle the pass rush that the Broncos can bring, it's the Cowboys. And if they can get out to that early lead, kill the clock, I think that's the recipe for success.
Could not agree more. That is going to do it for today's show. Again, folks, a big thank you to the Guild in Austin. Again, they have been today's sponsor. One more time, that is a new concept in luxury hospitality in Austin, Texas. If you're going to Austin, and I highly recommend you guys do, you got to stay with the Guild. It's the best residential buildings in Austin. Think of it as like a luxury Airbnb. And if you do book, use promo code CHATSPORTS. They'll give you 15% off your first stay. A big thank you to the Guild for sponsoring today's show. For producer Brett Scott, that's Mitchell Renz. I'm Tom Downey. We'll be back again here next week, same time for another Cowboys Report. That will do it for us today. You guys stay classy out there.